The thing about retrospect has always been something interesting. It's something about retrospect that always gave me this feeling of a new discovery or like a new opinion. And one of those things that I want to talk about today was Sasha Calle's Supergirl. See, back in 2023, when The Flash released, most of the conversation centered around the movie was like multiverse cameos, Michael Keaton's return as Batman, and the film's box office struggles. But hidden inside that movie, we actually got a brand new version of Supergirl, and probably the first movie version of Supergirl we've had since Helen Slater back in the 80s. And Sasha Calle was the woman who brought the Supergirl to the screen. Despite only appearing in a single film, many fans walked away wanting to see more of her, and me included. I was actually more interested in her version of Supergirl, weirdly enough, than the version that I loved from the CW show, or even the Supergirl from not more than that girl, or more than Superman. But I was just more interested in what they were going to do with her. And today, we're looking back on Sasha Calle's Supergirl and asking one question: did the DC universe move on too quickly, or did they actually do the right thing by just kind of moving her to the side, even all things considered? So we all know, like in the Flash, Barry goes back in time to like find his mom, save his mom, and creating like a drastically different timeline. And when he seeks help from Batman, he discovers that Superman never actually arrived on Earth because of the changing of history, and instead it was Kara Zor-El. Unlike most versions of Supergirl, Kara was captured by the government shortly after arriving on Earth. So, like, this is already a different Supergirl than we've ever gotten. Like Supergirl being captured by the government and being experimented on and all that. That is crazy in and of itself. And she was imprisoned and all the other things. It's actually a pretty grim scene when they find her because she's like all like dried out and her skin's all messed up and everything because she'd been hidden out of the sun for so long. And she's isolated. She's like very distrustful, angry, emotionally scarred, and she still chose to help save the world, which is something I think a lot of people didn't understand at the time when she's like, they experimented on me and I don't want to help, and she dips off, but like she kind of had every right to. Like, I don't know why people think just because there's super in front of it, she doesn't know. She didn't learn the Supergirl, Superman morals. She's Kryptonian as far as she's concerned. But she was definitely a survivor. She was like, the difference between her version and a lot of other Supergirls was the version of trauma she went through. And she wasn't raised by the Kents. She wasn't raised by like a loving family. She didn't have any friends. She grew up in an isolated chamber being experimented on. That raw edge pretty much gave her a different, very different approach and feel to her than any Supergirl before her. And I did love the suit. I loved her look. Like her hair, I love the short hair. I thought it was like a perfect look for her. The influences that she is inspired from, the costume, which I was like, yeah, when I first saw the costume, I said, yeah, that looks like a very womanly version of Henry Cavill's Superman suit because this was still at the time the DCEU. So yeah, it does make a lot of sense that she would look like she could be Henry Cavill's cousin instead of just Supergirl, which I was completely okay with. She had more of an alien like look to her, and she is the most different look because she's based off of, at least the design is based off of another Earth Supergirl where she looks just like how she did in this movie. The short black hair, the bodysuit type thing. She looks exactly like that Supergirl, but she's still Kara Zor-El, which, yeah, sure, I can get down with that. And the presence they give her when she first shows up is very much known. That scene when they break her out is like my favorite set piece sequence in the movie because as soon as she like gets into that sun, you see her start to heal, and you're like, oh, she about to go off, and she absolutely does. That prison escape, the emotional reactions, she has probably some of the coolest Superman Supergirl action we've ever gotten on screen. Because let's be honest, Henry Cavill didn't do a lot of cool stuff on screen. He had the whole cool Man of Steel tackle with some punches and some throws of Man of Steel, and then in BVS he had some stuff with the heat vision, but nothing super cool, nothing super crazy. And then in Super and in the Flash, she just is doing some pretty interesting stuff for them, like especially when she's like killing the soldiers, which is insane. But she shares the movie with two Barrys and a Batman. Also, Batman had a fire action sequence, so it's just kind of like, okay, cool. And when I get down to like the tragedy of her character, it can be just like she did escape captivity, begins connecting with the others, and she starts to become a hero. Like all of those like natural regressions for someone of her character who's gone through what she's gone through, and it's really not a triumphant ending or a future or a sequel. She's one of the most tragic live action versions of Supergirl, and we really didn't get a lot of her. And it's kind of sad actually. I do feel like there was more opportunity they could have done with her. I do think the woman, I think Anna Nuguera, is that her name? I hope I didn't say that wrong. She was supposed to write this, and I think she did. I think she did write like a movie for this Supergirl, and it was supposed to drop on HBO Max. Because I do remember they announced a Sasha Calle Supergirl film, and I think once the whole overhaul kind of came around, I think it was one of the projects that got scrapped. Which I kind of understand why. If the Flash didn't do too well financially, then this Supergirl appeared here, but I don't know if that would have ultimately affected the film unless it ended up sucking. We won't know. And the sad thing is, we won't get to see her Supergirl evolve anymore beyond what we get because there's a very strong chance we're never going to see her Supergirl again. In fact, I can almost guarantee we're never going to see her Supergirl again. So, and that's sad because again, she's in this big ass mess of a movie. Her character development is pretty limited, and she really didn't get a lot of backstory, which is where I can kind of go back on some things. And we didn't really get enough time with her because she's really only in, I want to say, like the last 30 minutes of the movie. And when she shows up, she's angry she dips, and we don't see her for a little bit. Then we see her again when she comes back. And a good amount of the emotional moments felt rushed. But I do think that the way the grifters went about it was just pretty much any time. This is any time a woman in any film goes nuclear or gets angry, they try to make it sound like it's stupid. But she has every right to crash out on Zod. Like he did straight up unalive baby Kal-El before he made it to Earth. He was supposed to be there with her, but he catch him and end him. So do what you want with that information, but that is a very justified crash out for Supergirl to move that thing. And yeah, there just wasn't a lot of screen time for her to develop, unfortunately. But I do think the crash out was justifiable. And I would say, did she deserve another chance? Yes. And I do think if the overhaul never happened to a much better DC, I do think that that chance would have been gotten, and I think they could have paid off on it. But the track record that DCEU was going on, it wasn't particularly good. And that kind of showed, unfortunately. So I do think she had a solid enough performance that I would have liked to have seen her again. I liked the unique interpretation of the character. She did have a good amount of fan support. I know a lot of people who really like her, and the unexplored potential that really could have paid off. Honestly, this Supergirl would have probably been a real interesting watch for what they're doing with Supergirl now. Like I would have liked this Supergirl to go through that whole Woman of Tomorrow comic story because this Supergirl absolutely would. Like this Supergirl would definitely go through that story. So yeah, and again, the reason why it didn't really happen, like I said, the reboot was happening, that new creative direction, a new continuity, because that continuity was just goofy, and it definitely needed an overhaul to happen. So it's like I lean more to she did deserve a second chance, but she was never going to get it because we really needed a new DC. They just fumbled the bag on a lot of those films. So, like, if I had to really like close this video, I'm just gonna say it like this: Sasha Calle may have, only played Supergirl once, but she did manage to create a version of Kara that felt like distinct and memorable, and I think that's why people tend to like her. And full of like a lot of untapped potential, which is unfortunate. And the Flash sucked and it struggled to find an audience. Many fans still look back on her as like, you know, like one of the film's biggest strengths. I do too. I think Michael Keaton and all that. Like, I think she is my favorite part of the movie. Weirdly enough, even though the two Batman action sequences are cool, and Ben Affleck has one of the greatest lines in the movie or in the DCU period, and Michael Keaton's Batman is just insanely awesome at any point in time. But whether or not she was the definitive Supergirl, she certainly deserved more than that one chance to prove she could do it. So that's where I can say the overall portrayal of the character. I'd say maybe like a 6.5 to like a 7 out of 10. If I had to go off of just like portraying, because I think the character design is phenomenal. I straight up give that like a 10. I give her performance a little bit of like a 7. The writing, about a 6, because we really didn't get a lot on it. The potential is like a straight up 10 out of 10. I do think like the potential was there. I don't think that averages out to like a 6.5 to a 7, but whatever. And that's that's something to be at least remembered and respected on. So, let me know how you guys feel down below. Like, comment, subscribe for more. I will see y'all on the next one.